Hi, in this lesson we're going to talk about the slope of a line, and we'll focus on the basic meaning of the slope, and we'll look at how to use the slope to graph a line. The slope of a line is a number that indicates the steepness and direction of the line. Let's graph some lines so we can get an idea of what this number is actually telling us about the line. Here's a graphing calculator. We're going to graph three different lines. First, we'll graph a line with a slope of 1, then we'll graph a line with a slope of 2, and lastly we'll graph a line with a slope of 3. Watch these lines as they come in on the screen. Here they are. This red line has a slope of 1. The green line has a slope of 2, and the blue line has a slope of 3. Notice all three of these lines show an uphill rise. They're increasing when you look at them from left to right. A line with a positive slope will always be a line that increases from left to right. Also notice that as the slope of a line increases, the steepness of the line also increases. In other words, the line has more slant to it. Now let's compare a line with a positive slope to a line with a negative slope. We'll keep our graph with a slope of 1, and along with it we'll graph a line that has a slope of -1. Look what happens. The line with a positive slope is increasing, but the line with a negative slope is decreasing. It falls as you look at it from left to right. That's always the case with a negative slope. A line that has a negative slope is falling from left to right. Now, just for the sake of comparison, let's look at some fractional slopes. We'll keep our line with a slope of 1 again, and now we'll graph a line with a slope of 1/2 and a line with a slope of 1/3. Let's watch these as they come in on the screen. Here's our line with a slope of 1. The green has a slope of 1/2, and the blue has a slope of 1/3. Notice the slant of the line is decreasing. Even though all the slopes are positive, all the lines are uphill lines, we still see that as the slope of the line decreases, the slant of the line also decreases. Okay, so we've seen how the slope is a number that tells us whether the line rises or falls, and it also tells us how steep that line is. When we have a line in the coordinate plane, we can find the slope by using a formula. M, which stands for slope, is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. This is the formula for finding the slope of a line. x1 and y1 represent the coordinates of one point on the line, and x2 and y2 represent the coordinates of a second point on the line. And that's all that subscript 1 and subscript 2 mean, the first point and the second point. I'll draw a diagram to illustrate this formula. Here's the coordinate plane, and here's a line with a positive slope graphed in the coordinate plane. We have 2 points on the line. We'll call the first point x1, y1, and we'll call the second point x2, y2. When we know the coordinates of each of these 2 points, we can plug those coordinates into the formula to find the numerical slope of this line. The numerator of this formula represents the distance between the 2 y coordinates. That's this distance here. From y1 up to y2. That's how far we rose as we moved from one point to the second point. In the denominator of the fraction, we have the distance between the two x coordinates, and that's this distance here. This distance shows how far over we moved as we went from one point to the second point. So when you're moving from one point on the line to a second point on the line, you can also think of yourself as having traveled horizontally and then vertically to get to that point. The horizontal distance that you traveled is the difference between the two x coordinates, and that's called the run of the line. The vertical distance that you traveled is the distance between the two y coordinates, and that's called the rise of the line. We can use this idea of rise over run to help us find points along a line. Let's do an example where we graph a line using its slope and one point that we know. Here's an example. It says to graph the line that has a slope of -5 passing through the point 4, 7. Well, we need 2 points in order to graph a line. So let's start by graphing the point that we know, 4, 7. To graph 4, 7, we'll go to the right 4 and up 7. And now we know that the slope is -5. Well, -5 is understood to have a denominator of 1. So that means that our numerator is -5 and our denominator is 1. Remember, the numerator represents the change in the y coordinates, or the rise of the line, and the denominator represents the change in the x coordinates, or the run of the line. The slope of -5 over 1 means that every time the line falls 5 units, it also travels to the right 1 unit. That allows us to find additional points on this line. So let's graph 2 more points. From the point that we know, we'll go down 5 and to the right 1. And we know that this point is also on this line. Its coordinates are 5, 2. From this point, let's travel down 5 again and to the right 1 again. And we'll have a third point on this line, and its coordinates are 6, -3. So there we have 3 points that lie on this line, and we can connect those 3 points to get a graph of our line. So this is the line that has a slope of -5 and passes through the point 4, 7. If the slope had been a number like 2/5, this would mean that the rise of the line is +2 and the run of the line is +5. So every time the line goes up 2, it would travel to the right 5. And that's the pattern you would use to find additional points on the line. Again, suppose that you had a slope of, say, 3. Well, 3 is understood to have a denominator of 1. So here, the rise of the line is +3, the run of the line is +1. So this line moves up 3 every time it travels to the right 1. Now I want you to also notice that +2 over +5 is the same as -2 over -5, since a negative divided by a negative is still a positive. So moving down 2 and left 5 still gets you on the line. Also, 3 over 1 is the same as negative 3 over negative 1. And so moving down 3 and to the left 1 is the same as moving up 3 and to the right 1. You still will find a point that's on the line. For the line that we've graphed, the alternate way of moving would have been to go up 5 and to the left 1. So the slope of a line is a number that tells you the steepness of that line and whether it's rising or falling. And we can use the slope of a line to help us graph that line.